Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? It wasn't outright disrespect, but it was something colder, a quiet dismissal, one that came without raised voices or sharp words. Just the kind of silence that wraps around a person like Frost, telling them they don't belong. Nicole sat alone, reviewing satellite images on her tablet, listening while the SEAL commander walked the team through extraction paths and fallback contingencies. The mission brief had ended 5 minutes ago, but no one had asked for her opinion. No one had asked her anything at all. Commander Thompson paced slowly, eyes locked on the wall-sized map in front of them. His voice was calm, measured. We've got 3 high-value targets confirmed at the compound just north of Sector Tango. Strategic leadership. If we can take them out, we change the shape of this war. But there's a problem. He turned. They're over 2,200 yards out. No line of sight from any current deployment zones. No conventional weapon system can hit them without exposing the team. That's when Nicole spoke, sir, she said, steady and clear. I can eliminate all 3 targets. The room stilled. It wasn't what she said. It was the way she said it. Like she was asking for the salt at dinner. Certain, calm, unshakable. Commander Thompson looked at her with something between surprise and calculation. 16 years in special operations had taught him how to read a man's confidence, a woman's edge, a soldier's bluff. But Nicole, she didn't bluff. She never had haze, he said carefully. That's over 2,200 yards. The world record for a confirmed kill is just a few hundred yards past that. And that was under perfect conditions with multiple ranging shots and ideal visibility. I understand the distance and the requirements, sir, she replied. Thompson raised a brow. You're talking about 3 separate headshots, human targets, no second chances. You know what happens if you miss? Nicole didn't flinch. We compromise the entire mission. Security triples, intel dries up. Our presence is confirmed, I know. His voice dropped. And if you're captured, this mission never existed. There will be no backup, no rescue, no recognition. Nicole's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Copy that, sir. She turned back to her scope. Through the glass, the 3 generals were specks of movement, talking, unaware, alive, for now. But there was something she hadn't told them. Not yet. It had started months ago. Nicole had begun refining techniques no one else even thought of, incorporating physics models, weather data algorithms, and deep learning-assisted ranging computations. She trained in isolation, no applause. No validation, just her, a rifle, and the cold discipline of perfection. Her peers rolled their eyes. Overkill, one had called it. No one's ever gonna need all that. But Nicole wasn't doing this to be the best. She was doing it because sometimes someone has to make the shot that no one else can. That's what haunted her. The last mission, the one that hadn't made the debrief, the convoy that never got air support because command didn't trust the targeting data, the screams that still echoed behind her eyes when she closed them. She had sworn then, never again. Not if she could help it. Not if she could see them, reach them, stop them. Thompson didn't want to approve it. Everything in him said no. But something in her voice, something in the way she stood. He gestured. Show me. Nicole reached into her tactical bag and pulled out a waterproof field notebook. Not government-issued. Not standard. The pages were filled with neat, sharp handwriting, diagrams, tables, formulas that looked like they belonged in a physics journal, not on a battlefield. This, she said, documents every shot I've ever taken beyond 1,000 yards. Adjustments, atmospheric readings, deviations, confirmed hits. Thompson turned the pages slowly. Coriolis effect, gyroscopic drift, air density modeling, altitude gradients. Variables most snipers never thought about. Most couldn't. Nicole had built a shooting method so precise, so data-driven. It looked like science fiction, but it wasn't. Fiction, not to her. He stared at her. Take the shots. The team went silent. No one cheered. No one doubted. There was a tension, thick, electric, that wrapped around the rooftop like smoke. Nicole lay prone, her rifle an extension of her own bones. Her breath slowed, her heart rate dropped. The chaos of the world faded to background noise. Wind, 12 miles per hour. NW, temp, 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Pressure, 2,991 IAHG, a slight temperature inversion above the compound. Every variable was accounted for, not memorized, known, felt. She made minute adjustments. Her hands moved with ritual grace, like a concert pianist before the first note. Range, 2,247 yards, she whispered into her coms. 3 targets, upper floor, atmospheric conditions optimal, engaging in 15 seconds. She saw them now, clearly. General Rashid al-Mansouri, strategic commander, cold, brilliant, responsible for the deaths of dozens of coalition operatives. General Omar Halil, the lifeline of enemy logistics. Cut him. The body bleeds. General Faisal al-Zarani, intelligence chief. Take him out, and their eyes go blind. They were standing together, planning, arguing, laughing. She exhaled, held, fired. The rifle thundered. The .50 caliber round exploded. From the barrel, crossing nearly 30 miles in just over 2 seconds. The bullet dropped over 420 inches in flight, drifted 19 inches sideways due to wind and Earth's rotation. General al-Mansouri's head snapped back. His body dropped before the sound even reached the compound. Nicole was already on the second target. Halil turned, confused, startled. Shot 2 was clean. Center mass, skull, exit wound. She transitioned again. Al-Zarani was moving smart. Fast, reaching for cover. She led him, predicted his path. Time and physics danced in her mind. She pulled the trigger. Impact, 12.3 seconds. 3 shots, 3 deaths, silence. Commander Thompson said nothing, just stared through the spotting scope like he couldn't quite believe what he'd seen. She did it, Chief Williams whispered. 3 for 3. Nicole didn't pause. She was already breaking down her position, storing her rifle, calculating escape routes in her mind. Confirmed elimination of all 3 targets, she reported. Recommend immediate tactical withdrawal. They moved fast, quiet, to rocky terrain that masked their exit. Behind them, the compound was chaos, screams, sirens, confusion. They never saw who took the shots. As they hiked through the hills, Thompson caught up to her. "Hayes," he said, "who the hell are you?" Nicole didn't stop walking, just looked ahead. Staff Sergeant Nicole Hayes, Army sniper, recon support. And unofficially? She smiled. "Unofficially, sir. I'm the reason enemy generals don't sleep well at night." Why did she always feel more alive when everything was falling apart? The dust kicked up beneath her boots. Each footstep down the extraction path felt like it echoed into something deeper. A memory, a wound, a promise she hadn't made to anyone out loud. Nicole didn't believe in adrenaline. She didn't talk about thrills or rushes. What she felt right now wasn't excitement. It was clarity. And underneath that clarity was something colder. The ache of knowing she would disappear again. There'd be no celebration, no medals, not even her name spoken aloud once they reached the extraction point. She wasn't here to be remembered. She was here because someone had to do the work the world couldn't admit needed doing. Thompson kept glancing back at her. Nicole noticed. She always noticed. He had seen something back there. Not just a record-breaking shot. Something he couldn't categorize. "Where did you even learn to shoot like that?" he asked during a brief halt, his voice lower now, more curious than commanding. Nicole gave the answer that always came first. The easy one. "My father was a hunter. I learned early." But that wasn't the real story. Not the one she carried like shrapnel in her chest. She was 13 when the airbase was attacked. Her family had been stationed overseas. Her dad, an Air Force instructor, her mom, an analyst. Nicole remembered the day so vividly, it might as well have been carved into her bones. She remembered hiding under the barracks, the sound of distant gunfire. Closer explosions, then silence, long, dreadful, endless. By the time soldiers cleared the wreckage, only one child had survived. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. Just looked up with those same quiet eyes she had now. They said trauma had made her emotionless, but the truth? It had made her precise. The team reached the extraction point just before nightfall. The inbound helicopter was still 10 minutes out. The wind had picked up, dry, warm, restless. Nicole sat alone near the edge of the outcrop, her rifle case. Beside her, looking out at the valley below, she knew what was coming next. The report, the silence, the reassignment. She always moved on before the dust could settle. Thompson walked over. "Still won't tell me your longest confirmed shot?" Nicole didn't look at him. "You wouldn't believe me. Try me." She was quiet for a moment. Then, softer, more human than before. It wasn't the distance that mattered. It was the day. He waited. Nicole turned her face to the wind. He was. A war criminal, children, villages. We tracked him for months, got one shot. 2,692 yards. Through haze, fading light. And I hit him. Thompson blinked. "That would make you the top sniper in recorded history." "No," she said. "It would make me a name in a book, and names in books." "Don't take the next shot." He understood. Then Nicole had killed more than enemies. She'd killed the need for recognition, for ego, for narrative. What she carried instead was something colder and heavier. They boarded the bird. No words. Just the rhythmic thumping of the rotors and the unspoken tension of operators returning from something that shouldn't have been possible. Back at the secure outpost, there was no debrief, just clean. Gear checks, and clearance transfers. Nicole received a new packet that night. Sealed, red-marked. She opened it without hesitation. Next deployment. TBD. Tasking level. Tier 1. Status. Deep shadow. She folded the paper, slid it back into the envelope, and lit it on fire in a metal ash dish on her bunk. No evidence, no trace, no identity. That night, as she lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling fan turned slow revolutions above her, a question surfaced. When had she last called home? Did her sister still live in Colorado? Did her nephew still draw her pictures, even though they stopped getting replies? She closed her eyes and tried to remember the sound of her mother's voice, but all she could hear were bullet trajectories and elevation tables. Somewhere inside, something broke a little more. But Nicole didn't cry, not because she couldn't, but because if she started, she wasn't sure she'd stop. The next morning, the command tent was unusually quiet. Thompson walked in mid-conference call, still in his undershirt, a mug of black coffee in his hand. When he saw Nicole, he paused. "You're still here?" New orders came through, classified. He nodded. Let me guess. They don't tell you where you're going. Just when?" Nicole smiled faintly. "Exactly. You know, Hayes. I've worked with the best, the legends, and what you did. I'll be honest, it changed the way I look at range, capability. Hell, at what's possible." She didn't respond. Thompson walked over. He lowered his voice. "You're the kind of operator they write about in books, and then erase." Nicole met his eyes. "That's the point, sir." A pause. Then Thompson asked a question he hadn't dared before. "Why you keep doing it?" Nicole didn't blink, didn't hesitate. "Because every time I do, one more child doesn't grow up under tyrants. One more village wakes up to silence instead of fire. One more war gets a little less cruel." She stood. "And because sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts." In the hours that followed, her name was erased from the temporary deployment roster. Her badge was reclassified, her file locked behind 3 layers of encryption. But the war knew her. The generals whispered. about her, and the shadows always made room when she walked in. Why did he flinch when she looked back at him? The man across the table wore a dark gray suit and a nondescript expression. Eyes that had seen too much, said too little. But when Nicole glanced up, just for a second, he blinked and flinched. Was CIA or something adjacent, the kind of operative with no nameplate, no rank, no allegiance beyond the mission. Nicole had seen men like him before. She buried a few. The temporary safe house outside Istanbul buzzed with subtle danger. No alarms, no overt weapons, but everything. The locked doors, the reinforced glass, the signal blockers screamed one thing: you're being watched, and you won't be warned. He slid the folder across the table without speaking. She opened it. A grainy photo, a name in red, a location, then 3 lines. Target. Confirm political ties. High-risk collateral threshold. 0. Nicole stared at the image. Young, mid-30s, smiling in the picture. But she knew better than to believe in photographs. They say he's helping refugees, she said quietly. The man nodded. He is. And they want him dead? He's also smuggling components for high energy. Weapons through diplomatic aid shipments. Has ties to state-sponsored insurgencies. Nicole shut the folder. And if I refuse? He raised an eyebrow. You don't. The ride to the target zone was quiet. A local van, gutted and reinforced. One handler beside her, young, nervous. Probably hadn't done more than 1 or 2 of these field jobs. He kept looking at her rifle. Case like it might hiss at him. Is it true? He finally asked. That you made a shot from over 2,200 yards? Nicole didn't look at him. It's true, she said. He nodded quickly, as if afraid silence might offend her, then soft. What did it feel like? Nicole thought about it. The moment, the breath held, the life taken, the world tilting back into some kind of balance. Heavy, she said. He didn't ask again. They arrived before dawn. Her position was high, 10 stories up, partially built. Residential tower, the perfect mix of urban decay and elevation. No one patrolled here. No one cared. Nicole unpacked her gear. Scope, rifle, weather meter, rangefinder, a small thermal drone she launched with a flick of her wrist. The world lit up in glowing heat signatures. The target compound was bustling, guards. Runners, children. She frowned. There weren't supposed to be children. Nicole waited. Hours passed. The sun rose, casting long shadows over the city at 0731. The target emerged. Same face, same smile. He knelt to speak to a boy, handed him something. Bread. Maybe, then continued on. She tracked him through her scope, watched as he disappeared behind a shaded courtyard. The shot was clean. One. Opportunity, no wound, no excuses. She didn't take it. Later, the handler hissed at her. What are you doing? That was the shot. Nicole didn't respond, just watched the horizon. You were cleared to fire. We had confirmation. Are you disobeying? She turned to him slowly. There were children. So what? He's a threat. We neutralize threats. Nicole's voice turned icy. You neutralize what your intel confirms. I eliminate threats I've seen. Not guesses. Not red stamps. He stepped back, realized too late what kind of operator he was speaking to. That night, Nicole hacked the drone telemetry, used heat signatures, movement patterns, time index video. What she found made her chest tighten. The man had moved between refugee camps and black market meets, but at no point had he engaged with military personnel, weapon transfers, or known arms dealers. False flag. She'd seen it before, when the politics got muddy. Command liked to clean up the story with bullets, but Nicole, she cleaned up truth. The next morning, the folder was gone from the table. The man in the suit didn't flinch when she looked at him this time. He smiled. You passed. Nicole didn't answer. He continued, voice smooth. This was a vetting op. To see if you'd take the shot, we needed to know you could say no. She narrowed her eyes. You risked the child's life to run a test? Calculated risk? Nicole stood. Her voice didn't rise. It got quieter, more dangerous. Next time you want to test me, send me a math problem, not a child with bread. Then she walked out. Somewhere between Istanbul and her next airlift, she sat alone at a small table in an airport mess hall. No uniform, no tags, just a quiet face and a black coffee. She was invisible. Again, and she liked it that way, but inside, something was unraveling. She thought about the boy, the bread, the smile, the second after she almost pulled the trigger, and the half-second where she almost did anyway, despite the child. That scared her more than anything. Not the kill, but how close she'd come to becoming what they assumed she already was. She boarded the plane without speaking. Another black dossier waited for her. Another name. Another mission. As the engines roared to life, she stared out the window. Below, the city flickered with 1,000 little lives she'd never meet, never save, never know. But maybe, just maybe, one of them was still alive because she said no, and that had to be enough, even if no one ever knew. Why did her hands shake only when she was safe? The mission had gone clean. No casualties, no alarms, no missed intel. But now, 2 hours after landing at the covert airfield in Djibouti, Nicole sat alone in the steel-paneled operations tent, gripping a ceramic mug of black coffee that trembled slightly in her hands. Not from fear, not from cold, but from something deeper, like her nerves finally had permission to feel what her body refused to during the mission. She watched the tremor without emotion. This was the only time it came. After, "You're late," came a voice from behind her. Nicole didn't turn around. She didn't need to. The gravel in his voice, the faint limp in his step. It was Commander Thompson. He dropped into the chair across from her, exhaling like he'd been carrying too much weight, which, in a way, he had 12 active missions. In 6 months, a dozen names crossed off, and Nicole Hayes at the center of too many of them. The brief says you passed some kind of loyalty test. Nicole didn't respond. Thompson leaned in. You refused to take the shot. Against orders. That's not the kind of defiance they punish. I don't kill people because a folder tells me to. He smirked. That's why they keep giving you folders. There was a long pause, outside, distant. Helicopter blades chopped the sky. Nicole finally looked up. Sir, when's the last time you asked yourself if we're still doing the right thing? Thompson didn't answer at first. He studied her, really studied her. The set of her jaw, the exhaustion around her eyes, the calm that didn't come from peace, but from burnout. I stopped asking a long time ago, he said finally. Started asking if you were still doing the right thing. That seemed like a better compass. That surprised her more than it should have. He continued, voice low. You've done things no one else could, Hayes, but you're starting to look like someone who's lost her way. I'm not talking about your skill set. I'm talking about the part of you that still believes this matters. Nicole stared at the steam rising from her mug. Does it? He nodded slowly. It does when you say no. Later that day, she was in the armory. She liked it here. No questions, no politics, just tools and physics and a quiet ritual of preparation. Her gear was laid out like a surgeon's kit. Each component. Cleaned, aligned, methodical. The wind meter. The custom-scribed scope. The graphite bolt wrench. Each one told a story she didn't say out loud. That's when she noticed the envelope. No markings. No seal. Just her name. Hayes. In black ink, inside was a photo, not of a target, of a woman. Older, gray hair. Smile lines. Nicole froze. It was her mother. There was no message. No briefing, no context, just the image. She hadn't seen her mother in 7 years. The last time, they'd met at a diner outside Fort Bragg. Nicole was halfway through her special warfare track. Her mother had begged her to choose something safer. Nicole remembered what she said. calm, confident, already in love with the mission. I don't need safe. I need purpose. Her mother's eyes had filled, but she didn't argue, just held her daughter's hand and said one thing. Then please promise me you won't disappear. Nicole had nodded, then disappeared anyway. She found the nearest secure line and made the call. It routed through 3 encrypted layers before connecting. Her handler answered, "Yes?" "Why was my mother's photo in my armory case?" A pause then. "We thought you might need grounding before your next tasking." Nicole's jaw clenched. "You're using my family now?" "Your family's alive because of the work you do, just like thousands of others. Consider this." A reminder of what's at stake, she said nothing. "Hayes, your next assignment comes from NATO directly. Ultra Black. You'll be operating outside of sovereign zones. You'll have one partner. Name? Call sign. Spectre." Nicole exhaled. She knew. That name, Spectre, was legend. Former Grom, Poland's elite unit. Rumor said he once dismantled a human trafficking ring using nothing but a knife and a satellite phone. Some said he didn't exist. Others said he wasn't one person, but many. Nicole believed neither. She just knew one thing. If they were putting her with Spectre, it wasn't a mission. It was a message. 2 days later, she met him on a private airstrip outside Oslo. Spectre wore a black jacket, clean beard, and a silence that didn't ask to be broken. They exchanged no pleasantries, just a nod, a glance, a mutual understanding between ghosts. The mission was simple on paper. Infiltrate, observe, terminate. The target, Colonel Danislav Koval, ex-crew. Now a private warlord training anti-NATO insurgents in the Carpathian Mountains. The compound was fortified, surrounded by civilian farming villages, and protected by a no-fly zone. Direct strike was impossible. Nicole would take the shot. Spectre would get her there. The insertion was brutal. Mountain weather turned fast. Wind howled. Visibility dropped. They moved through snow-covered passes, silent and slow, like wraiths. Nicole hadn't spoken in 6 hours. Spectre didn't seem to notice or care. That night, huddled under thermal blankets, Nicole finally broke the silence. "Why do you still do this?" Spectre didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "Because evil doesn't rest, and I hate waking up knowing I let it breathe another day." Nicole nodded slowly. "You ever think we've become it?" His eyes glinted in the darkness. "Every day. That's how I know I haven't." At dawn, they reached the ridge. Nicole unpacked her rifle. Below, through layers of fog and tree cover, a compound came into view. She adjusted the scope, checked elevation, humidity, pressure. Spectre set up counter-surveillance. Koval appeared at precisely 063, as expected, in uniform, laughing with 2 guards. Nicole steadied her breath, found the rhythm, aligned the crosshairs. Her finger brushed the trigger. Then, a girl small, barefoot, running across the courtyard. Chasing a ball, she darted directly between Nicole's muzzle and Koval's chest. Nicole didn't breathe, didn't blink. The moment passed. She adjusted and fired. Koval dropped, skull rupture, exit wound. Clean. No one else was touched. But Nicole's hands shook again. This time, before the mission ended, as they exfiltrated, Spectre spoke. "You hesitated." She was a child. "You could have missed your window." "I didn't," he nodded. Then added, "You still feel it. That's good." Most of us lose that long before we lose accuracy. Nicole didn't respond, because deep inside, a voice was starting to whisper louder. What happens the day she doesn't feel it anymore? When did silence start feeling louder than gunfire? Nicole sat inside the cargo hold of a C-17, knees pulled in slightly, helmet off, hands resting loosely between her legs. The flight was dark, cold, the kind of cold that slipped past the fabric of her uniform and settled beneath her skin. No matter how many layers she wore, across from her, Spectre slept with his back to the bulkhead. Still, unbothered, Nicole stared at him and wondered, how many times had he done this? And how many times had it taken a piece of him that no one would ever see? She knew that feeling too well, because even now, long after Koval was confirmed dead, after mission success had been logged and coded and transmitted in silence, Nicole felt nothing, not pride, not relief, not even grief, just a flatline hum inside her chest. And that terrified her more than any shot ever could. The base was temporary. Arctic winds howled around the perimeter, fencing like wolves in the dark, inside. Heaters thumped against the cold. Everyone moved with quiet urgency. No one spoke louder than necessary. It was a place built for briefings, refueling, and vanishing. Nicole was escorted to an isolated debriefing room. Thompson was already inside, sitting behind a reinforced steel desk. She hadn't seen him in 2 months. "You don't look like hell," he said, "which worries me." Nicole sat across from him. "I'm fine." "Sir, no, you're not. You're getting too good at lying." He slid a thin dossier across the table. "Before you open that, I want you to know. You can say no. This one isn't an order. It's a request. From the top." Nicole didn't move. Thompson leaned forward. "They want you to train someone." She looked up, startled. "Train?" "Her name's Sergeant Alina Brooks, 23. Top percentile in long-range aptitude. She's raw, but the math clicks in her head like it did for you. They think she might be the next you." Nicole's expression hardened. "There's no next me." "Exactly. But if anyone could come close, she might." He paused. "And Hayes. She asked for you by name." Nicole stood outside the range later that afternoon, watching Alina through the scope of a spotting glass. Her posture was stiff, trigger pull slightly rushed, but the fundamentals were there. The girl had eyes that didn't blink at pressure. After 4 shots, Nicole walked up beside her. "Your left elbow's collapsing under recoil," she said. "You're not absorbing the shock. You're flinching before the shot breaks." Alina didn't turn. "You always correct people without saying hello?" Nicole raised an eyebrow. "Only when they're holding a rifle wrong." Alina smirked, then finally looked at her. "You're different than I imagined." Nicole blinked. "What did you expect?" "I don't know, taller, colder, less human." Nicole said nothing. Alina continued. "You took the Rashid shot, right? The 3 generals?" Nicole glanced downrange. "I don't talk about confirmed kills." "Okay, then maybe I'll ask something else." A pause. "Do you ever regret it?" Nicole's answer came slower this time. "Only the ones I almost didn't take." The next few weeks were unlike any Nicole had lived in years. She trained Alina every morning, windage, drop calculations, pulse control, angle compensation, mental clarity. But the girl wasn't just learning to shoot. She was learning to see how light bent, how air moved, how silence carried messages louder than orders ever could. Sometimes Alina asked questions that caught Nicole off guard. "Do you believe in forgiveness?" "What? Was your first kill like? Why did you stop smiling in every photo after 2018? Nicole answered few of them, but she didn't walk away either. And in that, something began to shift. One morning, during a long-distance drill, Alina missed her target by 3 inches. Her hand trembled, breath uneven. Nicole walked over slowly, knelt beside her. "What happened?" "I saw his face in the scope, just for a second, and I wondered who he was before we called him a threat." Nicole stared at her, not with disappointment, but with something like recognition. "That's not weakness, Brooks. That's your humanity. Talking. You don't kill that voice. You work with it. You let it speak. Then, when it's time, you choose what matters more." Alina looked up. "And what matters most to you?" Nicole didn't answer. She just stood and whispered, "You'll know when it's in your crosshairs." That night, Nicole found herself in the small chapel on base. Prayers, no candles, just silence. She hadn't stepped inside one of these in years, but something had pulled her there, some invisible thread. She sat in the last row, staring at the wooden cross on the wall, and for the first time in months, the tears came, soft, soundless, hot against her cold cheeks. Not because of guilt, not because of fear, but because she wasn't sure anymore if she'd know when it was time to stop. Because if she trained Alina right, would that make her free? Or just replaceable? At the next morning's drill, Alina hit the 1,200-yard target in high crosswind. First shot clean. Nicole didn't praise her, just walked up beside her. They stood in silence for a long moment. Then, Nicole said, softly, "You're ready." Alina looked confused. Ready for what? To take the next shot, even when no one believes it's possible. Alina hesitated. Will I ever stop feeling afraid? Nicole looked her in the eyes. No, but if you do, step back. That's when you're dangerous to the wrong people. Later. That day, Thompson called Nicole into his office. You're being reassigned. To what? A mission you requested, Nicole frowned. I didn't request anything. You did. The day you asked me if any of this still mattered. He slid a folder across the desk. She opened it. There was no name inside, just a location, a city she knew too. Well, a place she had spent a lifetime avoiding. Basra. Her father had died there. Years ago. Friendly fire. The records were sealed. Now, something was happening again. Something they wouldn't tell her, that they wanted her there. Why? She looked up. At Thompson. Why send me? Because you left something behind there, and they think you might be willing to die for it. Nicole's voice dropped. What do you think? He held her gaze. I think you're about to remember who you were before you became a ghost. What if the war started long before she ever picked up a rifle? The plane descended through amber haze as the lights of Basra flickered into view. Fractured, restless, and far too familiar, Nicole stared out the window in silence. It had been 14 years. 14 years since the friendly fire incident that took her father's life. 14 years she buried the grief beneath steel and scope and service. She had never come back, not once. Now the city waited for her like a wound that hadn't healed, only scarred over, and something inside her was starting to bleed again. The briefing was thin, no detailed files, no diagrams. Just a name. Colonel Yusuf Karim, ex-Intel, local warlord, allegedly training child soldiers under humanitarian cover. The agency wanted confirmation, and, if the evidence was there, elimination. But Nicole could feel it. There was more. They weren't just sending her here to finish a mission. They were sending her home, to a place she no longer recognized, for reasons she didn't fully understand. Her contact in Basra was a soft-spoken doctor named Nadia Husseini, working out of a half-collapsed medical clinic near the Shat al-Arab. She wore her grief like an old sweater, familiar, stretched thin, but still holding on. Nicole arrived undercover aid logistics consultant. No weapons, no rank, just silence. Nadia studied her over tea. You don't look like someone who believes in second chances. Nicole didn't answer. Karim controls every checkpoint from here to the oil fields. Nadia continued. No one sees what he doesn't want seen. Nicole sipped her tea. And what doesn't? He want me to see. Nadia's eyes hardened. The children he keeps armed in the back of his compound. The girls sold for allegiance. The boys turned into bullets. Nicole clenched her jaw. Can you get me inside? Nadia nodded once. But you won't like what you find. That night, Nicole lay in a cot under a tin roof. The walls shaking with the hum of broken fans and street dogs howling. Sleep didn't come. Instead, memories surfaced. Her father, standing over her at a firing range in the desert. Sun in his eyes, proud, alive. You don't pull the trigger unless you know who you're aiming at. And I see, and why. She'd been 15. She hadn't understood then. But now the weight of every shot, every mission, every name she'd crossed off. It all came rushing back like a storm she couldn't shut the door against. Nicole turned to the wall and quietly wept. The next morning, she was inside Karim's compound. No rifle, no scope, just a civilian cover and a silent mission. She moved through the halls like smoke, unseen, unnoticed, a ghost dressed in borrowed clothing. The air reeked of oil and steel. The rooms were loud with propaganda and carefully rehearsed. Lies, but in the back. She found them, children, dozens, most under 12. Some with rifles too big for their bodies. Others tending wounds that spoke of things no one should survive. Nicole's stomach turned, her vision blurred. And then one boy turned to her, wide eyes, bare feet, thin arms. He was playing with a small cloth bear. Her father had given her a bear like that once. She nearly collapsed, but the boy smiled, and something inside her cracked, not broke. Cracked open, wide enough for a decision to slip in. That night, she met Nadia in the alley behind the clinic. I have what I need. Nadia's face fell. You're going to kill him? Nicole shook her head. Not yet. Why? Because dead men don't release children. Nadia hesitated. Then what? I'm going to make him believe I'm here for a deal. Nicole cut her off. I know what I'm doing. I've done this before. But deep inside, she hadn't. Not like this. Not without the rifle. Not with this much heart in the way. The next 48 hours were a blur of subterfuge. Nicole fed false intel to Karim's aides, gave just enough truth to earn a meeting, promised access to Western medical supplies in exchange for a ceasefire corridor. The man was clever, suspicious. But power made him blind. Pride made him careless. He agreed. She would deliver the supplies at the checkpoint outside Basra General Hospital. In return, he would release 20 children. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. The morning of the exchange, Nicole stood on the tarmac beside the convoy. She wasn't armed, but she wasn't unprepared. Because 3 clicks away, nestled atop a ruined minaret, a single black rifle case waited in a hollowed-out prayer room. She'd placed it there herself the night before, just in case, and now she was praying to nothing and everything that she wouldn't need it. Karim arrived late, wearing a smile like it was armor. He stepped out of his armored vehicle and walked toward her with slow, arrogant steps. You are brave, Miss Hayes, he said. Oh, very foolish. Nicole didn't blink. Both men die the same, he laughed. You sound like your father. The world froze. Her heart stopped. What did you say? Karim smirked. Major Hayes, your father. He used to meet my commanders here, back when your government thought we were allies. But accidents happen, misfires, planes that shouldn't have been in the air. Nicole's blood turned to ice. Karim leaned in, whispered, You think it was friendly fire? Nicole's vision blurred. Your father died so we could keep this city in chaos, so we could all stay employed. War is a business, Miss Hayes. Then he turned and walked toward the trucks. Nicole didn't hear the rest. She was already moving. She ran through alleys, past ruins, across sun-scorched rooftops. She climbed the minaret with bare hands, breath ragged, legs shaking. She reached the rifle case, dropped to prone, and sighted him. Wind, 4 knots northeast. Range, 821 yards. Angle, 7 degrees incline. No time to breathe, no time to think, only time to choose, and she did. The shot ripped through Karim's chest, exiting with a bloom of red against sand-colored stone. Screams erupted. Chaos followed, but the children. They ran, all of them, to freedom, to Nadia, to something other than silence and steel. Nicole didn't move. She just lay there, breathing, watching the smoke rise, and finally whispering, I forgive you, Dad. I know now. I know why you stayed. What happens when the system you protect turns its sights on you? Nicole knew the sound of a manhunt before it began. The air shifted. Communications paused. Silence came too fast, too thick. Then came the ripple. The one that said, You're not invisible anymore. By the time she made it to the backup extraction point, the black van was already gone. Tire marks still fresh in the dust. No smoke, no struggle. They hadn't been late. They'd been recalled. She was alone. She crouched beneath a shattered archway in the old quarter of Basra, heart still steady, breath calm. Not because she wasn't afraid. Because fear took too much energy, and Nicole Hayes didn't waste energy on things she couldn't use. She checked the local comms channel. Nothing. Then a ping, encrypted. A single message. Unconfirmed operator fire shot. Off book. Immediate. Recovery requested. Status. Target eliminated. Witnesses present. Operator. Hayes. Nicole. Burn notice in effect. She read it 3 times. Burn notice. No extraction. No backup. No identity. Nicole Hayes had just become the enemy. The first voice she heard wasn't a soldier's. It was Nadia, whispering through a crack in the clinic wall. They're coming, she said. Not locals. Foreign black uniforms, American weapons. Nicole nodded once. Why did you do it? Nadia asked. Nicole didn't answer at first. Then, because he killed my father, and I needed him to look death in the eyes and know it came from blood. Nadia stared. I thought you didn't believe in revenge. Nicole's voice was ice. I didn't, until it came looking for me. They ran, through alleys and broken homes. The kind of maze only war-torn cities know how to grow. Nicole moved with precision, purpose, not like a fugitive, but like a solution no longer wanted by the people who'd created her. Every step away from the compound made her more certain. This wasn't about the shot. This was about control. She killed a man too connected, too important to be removed without a press release and a 2-year-long diplomatic excuse. She'd cut the head off a hydra in plain sight, and now the world wanted to pretend it never happened. That night, she activated her final fallback protocol. Black Echo. Only one person could receive it. A satellite ping bounced through 6 ghost towers before landing on a secure server in an abandoned NATO outpost in Romania. Spectre. The reply came 2 hours later. Confirmed. Rendezvous, 72 hours. Black River route, no tail. If you're compromised, disappear. Nicole stared at the message, heart still quiet. She had 3 days to cross a border. Dodge 2. Kill teams, and decide whether to keep being Nicole Hayes or vanish into myth. On the 2nd day, as she moved through the mountains in silence, she found herself remembering a question Alina had asked weeks before. Will I ever stop feeling afraid? Nicole had lied then, said no, but the truth? Right now, she wasn't afraid, and that was worse, because the moment you stop being afraid, the moment pain stops mattering. The moment you start thinking about becoming something less human, more weapon, that's when you lose yourself, and Nicole wasn't sure how much of herself was left. She reached the river crossing by nightfall on the 3rd day. Spectre was already there, crouched beside the water, face shadowed beneath a black hood, rifle slung across his back like a relic. You burned the bridge, he said. Nicole stepped into the light. It was already on fire. They sent a kill team. I figured. He nodded. You're not safe anymore. Not in uniform. Not even out of it. Nicole dropped to one knee, eyes on the horizon. I wasn't trying to be safe. I was trying to be right. They sat in silence, wind moving over the water like breath. Then, for the first time in a long time, Nicole asked a question, not as a soldier, not as a sniper, but as a woman still holding onto one final shred of doubt. Do you think I made a mistake? Spectre didn't look at her. You asked that before, about another kill. I don't mean the shot, she swallowed. I mean staying, believing, following orders that only make sense when no one's watching. He was quiet for a long time then. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, same as always. But what if the choices were wrong? Spectre finally looked at her, really looked. Then you do what you've always done. You take the next shot and make it count. At dawn, Nicole had one final message left to send. She encoded it into a data packet, bounced it off a secure comms drone, and set it loose in the sky. The message was brief. To whoever's watching, the war you started didn't end with your enemy. It ended with your silence. I'm not coming back. I don't need to. I've already said everything I needed to say, with one bullet. Shadow, then she tossed her comms device into the river, watched it sink, watched her name go with it, and turned away. Nicole Hayes was gone, but Shadow? Shadow was just getting started. How you honor a ghost who saved the world and asked for no credit? 3 years had passed. Not a file, not a ping, not a whisper. Nicole Hayes, staff sergeant, sniper, silent protector, no longer existed in any active database. The SEALs stopped asking. The CIA stopped checking. The people who once briefed her now handed down missions to soldiers, half as skilled and twice as loud. But somewhere deep in the belly of a secured NATO vault, behind biometric locks and eyes-only clearance levels, there sat a slim classified file, project, Shadow, DSOM SSO status, terminated or active, unknown last confirmed sighting, border of Moldova, Romania significance rating, Tier 0 DO, not engage. Do not pursue. If seen, ask why she's watching. Some say they saw her in the DRC. A convoy attacked, hostages freed, no trace of entry or exit. Others whisper about a sniper in the Hindu Kush. 8 targets dropped in 12 seconds. No sound, no signature. A rumor in Tehran says a warlord once looked out his window and said, "I feel watched." He was dead the next day. No witnesses, just silence. And a single spent casing on the rooftop, polished, engraved with one word. Enough. Back. In the U.S., Alina Brooks stood on a windswept firing range. Eyes focused, heart steady. She held the rifle the way Nicole once had. Not like a weapon, but like a promise. She hadn't heard from Nicole in years, but she didn't need to, because the shot she was about to take, it wasn't for her. It was for every child Nicole saved, and every life she changed without ever asking for thanks. The trigger clicked, target hit, 1,600 yards. Moving uphill windshift mid-flight, Alina exhaled. Still not good enough. She whispered behind her, a voice she hadn't heard in 3 years. Closer than you think. She spun. No one was there, but folded on her bench was a note. No signature, no seal. Just a line scrawled in clean, sharp handwriting. Don't chase legacy, chase clarity. That's how you find the shots that matter. Alina smiled, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a trainee. She felt like an answer to a question someone had asked long ago, somewhere in a country that doesn't exist on paper. Nicole sat cross-legged on the edge of a crumbling rooftop, her rifle beside her, binoculars on her knees. She was older now. Not slower, just quieter. A child laughed below, chasing a ball through rubble. She watched, still, eye soft. There was no mission, no kill order, no target. Not today. Just a simple, impossible gift of peace. She looked out over the city, tired, fractured, healing, and smiled. Just barely. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And then it walks away. The SEAL commander once said no one could make that shot. Nicole Hayes didn't argue. She just made it, and in doing so, reminded the world that the most powerful actions are often the quietest, done without applause, without medals, and without ever needing to be seen, because some people aren't no one. They're the reason the impossible becomes inevitable, and sometimes that's exactly what changes the world.